Have you ever had a project where you've almost given up on it and wanted to throw it in the garbage? You're so excited about it in the beginning, and then stuff goes wrong, you get frustrated, you have a little cry. Well, I worked on a sweater for my husband for almost a year, and that sweater almost didn't get made. That was the Ska sweater. So if you want to find out my drama and saga around the Ska sweater, and if it did get finally finished, keep watching. Well, as I suggested, I started a sweater about a year ago, and there was a lot of drama around it. There was a lot of frustration around it. It almost didn't get made. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how the process I went through to finally get it made, and why it took so long, because it doesn't take me a year to knit anything. Normally it takes, I don't know, this sweater took 3 weeks maybe. Now the Ska sweater was more intensive. It had charts. I had to create the actual sweater design itself. So, I mean, yeah, it's going to take a little bit longer. It shouldn't have taken a year. But, so what I did in the beginning was I first had to create the charts, and then I got almost done the charts and I realized I had to stop because I hadn't designed the sweater yet, and I needed to know what the actual design of the sweater was going to be before I could finish the charts. So I went ahead and I designed the sweater, and I based that loosely off of a sweater I'd made for my father-in-law a couple years ago called the Shaker sweater, and it's a 1950s shawl collar style sweater. Originally, I was thinking about using the Mary Maxim sweaters. They also have the shawl collar, but those are done in bulky yarn in order to get the sizing, and I just didn't want to finagle around with trying to figure out how to make that work, because I was going to use worsted yarn. My husband gets hot very easily, so I didn't want to do a super heavy sweater for him. And I knew that the sweater I made for my father-in-law was about the right size, so I loosely based it on that. My husband is super tall, so I had to take into consideration like the length of his torso, his arms, and all that stuff. So I did a shawl collar sweater. I also decided to do, with the Shaker sweater, the cuff and the waist are hemmed instead of having ribbing. So that was also a factor. And it just looks more, for me it looked more elegant and really had that total 1950s vibe to it. So that's why I decided in the end to actually go with that style. So I worked out the pattern, and then once the pattern was worked out, I went back to creating the charts. This also helped me know that that chart was going to fit within the actual sweater. And then I wanted to have the two-tone cartoon character from the Specials, which is my husband's favorite, one of his favorite ska bands. Their album cover has like that image and like the checkerboard, and I wanted to sort of base the charts off of that. So I did find a couple of the two-tone images. One is a standing guy with his hands in his pockets, the other is the dancing guy, and then I was going to put a dancing woman, a ska dancing woman, on the sweater as well. So the dancing guy on the back, the standing guy on one side of the sweater front, and the dancing woman on the other one. But down the road I decided I didn't want the woman anymore because I just wanted the guy. And then I wanted to do the traditional checkerboard that you see in a lot of ska fashion. Also, people are like, what is ska? Ska is, it's a genre of music, and it was super popular in the 80s, and there's been a few waves of ska. And there's a resurgence again now, so you're going to see a lot more people dressing in that style, because there's a very specific style. If you look at the Specials album cover, I'll put a picture up, you'll see that style immediately, and you'll be like, okay, that makes sense. So I wanted the sweater to represent that style as well, right? So I worked for quite a while to figure those charts out, because in fact I had 2 of them to do. Actually, I did 3, to be honest. I did do the woman, and it was after I finished all the charts. That's when I realized I wasn't going to use her. I'm going to use her for something else, though. Maybe for me. And then once I had the charts done, I incorporated them into the design, and then I started knitting. And by the way, there's going to be footage for all the stages of this coming up shortly. I'm also going to show you how I did the charts, though some people are going to see my method and think it's really tedious, but it's the way that I did it, and that it's the way that works for me in order to get it like perfect. Yeah, so I'm going to show you all of that. So I then started knitting the sweater, and I knit the back. It was almost done, and I realized, so I got lazy at one point. I was doing intarsia all the way, and then the top part was less color work, so I thought I'll just do stranded because I got lazy. Doing intarsia is a bit of work, right? And after I finished it, I looked at it, and it didn't look right, so I ripped it all the way back to where I'd started the stranded work, redid it with intarsia, and then finished that, finished the 2 front pieces, and instead of sewing the body up and having my husband try it on, I decided to continue on with the sleeves because I hate knitting sleeves, and I thought I just want to get it out of the way, and then I would sew it all up, which I did, and then I sewed it up, and then he tried it on, and it didn't fit. The sleeves were way too big, too long, and the body of the cardigan was too short. I was frustrated at this point. I'd done all this work. I got mad. I threw it off into the corner. I considered frogging the entire thing, but I'd already done all that work, so I decided I'm going to put you away for a couple weeks. I'll come back to you and figure out what to do, except I didn't. What happened was I took on some test knitting jobs and did a bunch of those, and then I worked on my own designs, knitwear designs, and then in early fall. So I started the sweater in February of last year. Keep that in mind. Early fall rolls around, I think September-ish, I started doing all my Christmas knitting. And that sweater I kept seeing it in its bag, and I kept seeing it in its bag, and it was like starting to bother me, and then my husband started bugging me. He's like, "Are you gonna finish the sweater?" He was so excited about it. I specifically designed the sweater for him because I wanted to make him the perfect sweater. I knew how much he loves ska music, and I've made other sweaters for him in the past. I've made a sweater with an alien on the back. I've made an Atari themed sweater. I've made a Superman sweater. But I wanted to make something that, like, I knew there was a thing that he loved more than anything else. Anyways, I knew a ska sweater would be, like, perfect for him. He was excited because people would be envious of his sweater. I don't have it here right now because he's wearing it to work. He's been wearing it a lot since he got it for his birthday, finally a year later. So I realized I need to figure out how to fix the sweater. Now, the sleeves were an easy fix. I frogged them, and I knew that I had to remeasure his arms, and in this case, this time around, I was going to actually fit his arm as I got to certain stages of the sleeve, and when I got to the armpit, I knew that's when I could start the cap, and I would make sure it wasn't going to be too long. So I did that, but the problem now was I had to figure out how to fix the length. Because it was knit from bottom up, it's not like I could, well, I could have cut it off the bottom and like picked up stitches and like started ribbing, but that would have lost a little bit of the length and I didn't want to do that. So instead what I decided to do was pick up the stitches around the bottom and I did a long band of ribbing, sewed everything up. Well, actually I basted everything up, got him to try it on to make sure it fit. Then I did the final sew up, put the buttons on, and it fit him perfect. He's super happy. So what I thought I would do now, without further ado, is now let's go through the stages of making the sweater and how I made the charts. So I hope you enjoy that. Hello, hopefully you can hear me. If not, I will do a voiceover. Anyway, so what I'm doing is I'm creating a new chart for the Ska images, the two-tone Ska images. And as I'd mentioned, I do this in a couple of steps. I know to some this might seem much, but doing it this way for me, I get an accurate image that's going to fit within my sweater. So the first thing I do is I open up Stitch Fiddle, and I'll have links to all this below. And then I go to create a new chart. And when you do this, oh, by the way, this is the free version. I do not pay for the premium one. The free version does everything I need. And from here you can do a knitting chart, cross stitch crochet, diamond painting, fuse beads, pixel macrame, latch hook quilt, pixel hobby, and pixel art. For this, I'm doing knitting. And then that takes you to another screen, and it's going to ask you what type of knitting. Is it colors, meaning intarsia, ferrule, intarsia, twined, duplicate stitch? Or is it lace, cables, brioche, mosaic, or something else? In my case, it's colors because I am doing intarsia. Even though it's black and white, it is still intarsia. And then it asks you to pick a thread, or sorry, a yarn. And for me, I usually pick Bernat Super Value because it is a medium worsted. I also use Loops and Thread Impeccable, but I do find that one can come out light worsted, medium, or heavy. It's not super consistent. I do love the yarn, I just don't find it super consistent. The other option you could use is Red Heart Super Saver. It has the same consistency as the Bernat Super Saver, so that's what I pick. Then it's going to ask you, do you want an empty chart where you're going to do your own design? Are you going to do it from a picture or a QR code? In this case, I'm doing it from an actual picture I have. Now, I'm going to pick a different picture because I've already done this one. And then it's going to send you to, well, depending on if you're on a PC or an Apple, to your documents file. In my case, because I've already been working in the Ska Images file, it just automatically opened there. And the girl image, which is what I'm doing right now, is called Ska Girl PNG. You could do PNG, SVG, I think that's the only two. Yeah, that will be accepted for Stitch Fiddle. So I'm going to do PNG. Now, I have to make changes to this. For instance, right now the size is 150 lines, or in knitting that would be 150 rows. My actual design, let me see if I can get it open, only goes up to technically 120 rows because I do leave a few above and below for space. So, and I want it to fit within, so this is the shortest part of the top, the bottom will be flat. So it has to fit between here and the bottom, and because there's spaces, it is really 120 rows. However, I don't want it coming right to the top or right to the bottom because I have a hem on this pattern. So I decided I want it to fit between 110 rows. So it'll come down a bit here and a bit up from the bottom. So in that case, I need to change the size. And I'm going to go down to, and you could, I know people are looking at this going, why aren't you just typing it in? I tried that and it wouldn't do it for me. I don't know if it's just because I'm using this on a Mac. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, so I did 110 rows. And it's going to come out, I tried here, I also tried to change it to one color, being only black. It won't do it. I think if I get a premium version of this, even if I go choose colors, it wasn't working. Oh, hold on, let me see if it'll let me, yeah, it won't let me uncheck anything. So I think I need the premium for that. Anyway, so yeah, so what is going to happen when you print this off is there are going to be, this one's not as bad. This is coming out mostly black, but there's some lighter parts which are coming out like a brown. I'm not going to actually knit those parts at all. I'm just knitting the black part. And I know it looks kind of weird right now, but when you knit it, it will look a lot more like the original image. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save the chart. Because I think that looks good. Yeah, and I'm just double checking 110. So it's 110 rows by 31 stitches, which makes sense because this is going on the right front panel, and then I have another version of the two-tone guy going on the left side, but he's just standing up with his hands in his pocket. So I'm just going to save this chart. See how it looks a lot cleaner now, and how all the individual squares are showing up. Now, the next thing I do after this is I do print this off. And then I tape it up, and then after I tape it up, I then use it to create the Excel or spreadsheet graphics. So I'm going to show you that next. Oh, sorry, and then I download this. So you go to the File menu and you click Download, and then it's gonna, the only option you have with the free version is a PDF. If you have the premium version, then you can do a bunch of different file types, but I'm on the free one, so it is gonna be a PDF. Okay, so it's been downloaded. And then I just want to show you, I'm gonna zoom out on this a bit. So the other thing I do when I'm designing a sweater is I create the shape also on the Excel spreadsheet. And then what I do, and that includes like decreasing all the stitches, the shoulder, the neck. I'm going to do the exact same thing for the front and the right and left panel. And I incorporate also things such as the ribbing at the bottom, the neckline, the button bands, all that's incorporated into this. And then within here is where I'm going to be putting the image. Now I've already started the dancing two-tone sky guy, so that's why that's there. I'll pop up a image of that one just so you know what I'm talking about. And then this will also help me determine how wide the pattern is going to be, how long the pattern is going to be, you know, and I've already got my gauge figured out, so I know that this is going to be long. And if this is for my husband, I already know that because I've done this, I know that each square is a row or a stitch, how wide it's going to be, how long it's going to be. So yeah, there we go. That is how one of the steps into creating, or a couple of the steps I use to creating a chart. So the next time the next clip after this is going to be, I'll show you this image with part of the chart done. Okay, so I thought it would be interesting just to show you how I'm filling it in. So I'm going line by line by line, and each line, as I mentioned before, every time I do a line, I'm putting a dot beside the line I just finished. In this case, I knew this was going to be flush up for 6 rows, and then in 1 for each row until it meets this. So basically that's all I'm doing here. And now you can see that there's feet and legs. So yeah, I'm just going row by row and coming in 1 stitch on the right side. And it actually does go by fast, especially something like this where it's just one color. It does go by quite quickly. It's not, if it was a bunch of colors, yeah, it might be more tedious. But just because it's black and white, it goes by very quickly. So now you can see that they're, click off of it there. See, you can see it coming to life. So you got your shoes and the legs. So now I'm working on the body. And so far it looks like it's going to fit no problem. It is going to come right up to the almost the top. So, and if it ends up that I think that it's still going to be too big, I'll just have to redo the graph and stitch fiddle, and then it's easy enough just to delete this and start again. It's not, like I said, it doesn't take that long, really, just because I'm using 2 colors, white and black. Okay, this is done, and it was closer to the bottom initially, so what I did is I had to move it up slightly, but I also had to take into consideration that this is going to be a shawl collar, which means it is going to come down a bit on the back, and I wanted to make sure the image was not covered up by the collar. And believe it or not, this is centered. It looks slightly off. It is not. I actually did a check, and this is centered. Now for the checkerboard, what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue it right now. However, I'm going to have to see what that looks like because, again, I'm going to be putting a oval around this. So there's going to be like an oval, so there's white here, but then the rest of the sweater is black. So I'm going to have to see how the checkerboard looks when I do that, because it might not work. And in that case, what I'll be doing is the oval will be the edge of where the checkerboard ends. So yeah, that's the next thing I need to do with this. And then the back piece will be done and ready to make. And then I'm going to do the same exercise for both the front, right and left pieces. Those are going to be slightly more complicated, as I mentioned, because they, you know, I have to take into consideration the collar at the front, because it is partially knit on. You knit part of it on, but then you separate it, and then you, when you finish the rest of the body, you continue on with the collar, and then the button band is also knit on. So I'm going to have to do some playing around to make sure the images fit within all of that. So, but I'm going to finish the back for now, and then what I could do is start knitting the back, and then, you know, over time, you know, as I'm knitting the back, you know, spend time here and there to finish the other 2 pieces. I'm also thinking about whether or not I should put checkerboard on the sleeve, like just maybe a couple inches above the top of the cuff. So I'm thinking about that too. That might actually kind of look really cool. But anyways, this is where I'm at with the graphs. And I'm back. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you enjoy my process, and I hope you enjoyed the final sweater. So, will I knit another sweater like this again? Of course I will. I love challenges. I learned a lot of lessons from this, so I know what not to do next time. Yeah, anyway, if you like this type of video, subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and until next time, stay kitschy.